What was your most embarrassing moment in bed? Story 1. This story is from this weekend, and it's embarrassing by proxy. My wife and I are swingers, and we decided to pick up another couple to give thanks. We meet up with the couple at the bar and do a bit of dancing and talking. I'm told that the wife has never had an orgasm with anyone but her hubby, but that we are more than welcome to try. We head back to our place, cozy up, and start in on the foreplay. My wife makes her come twice after about 10 minutes. She goes down on my wife for a while, and we eventually switch up. I go down on her and she has several rapid-fire orgasms in a row. I look over and my wife is trying to raise the dead with the other guy. The look of horror on his face as she says, "My God. Nobody has ever done that to me, ever," was simultaneously awesome and moment-killing as you could imagine. His wife is pulling me up towards her and I throw on a condom to get busy, but I keep glancing to my wife who keeps giving me this look of "I'm doing my best here." His wife and I rail away and I try to come somewhat quickly to not prolong this too much. Meanwhile, his wife is screaming like a f***ing banshee and doing her best to fuck up my 750 thread count with her claws. We finish up and do the post-coital cuddling business, and his wife exacerbates the issue with something to the tune of "No worries, hopefully we can take care of you later today." My wife was somewhat annoyed, but I just couldn't stop laughing. I felt like a champ as well as a prick, since I obviously just robbed the mojo for the entire evening. As far as my own embarrassing story, recently our in-laws came to town and sifted through my DVD collection. Picking out Bram Stoker's Dracula, we all sat down to watch the movie with dinner. Reminiscing, I say I remember where I was when I first saw this movie. To which my wife spouts, "I'm surprised. I believe I was giving you a blowjob through most of it." Parental jaw droppage was fairly immediate, and the rest of the movie was just awkward as our parents realized that we watched it at their house with them sitting in the kitchen about 20 feet away. With regards to during sex personal embarrassment, my wife was on some pretty hefty painkillers for some back pain, and we were on vacation staying with relatives. She gets frisky and tells me that she wants me to f*** her in the ass. Not one to turn down an invitation, but wanting to be somewhat discreet, we go into the closet, close the door, and block the bottom of the door jamb with a blanket. We f*** like minks and hop back into bed. The next morning her uncle decides to show me the recent renovations that they'd been doing with the house. When we get to the bathroom renovations, he mentioned that the closet in the opposite room butts up against the wall of the shower, and that any noise in that closet is amplified like an echo chamber into their room. Nothing else was said, but my wife declared at that moment that we'd not be having sex at any relatives' houses ever again. Story 2. My now stepson walking in on my now wife and I at midnight when we were just co-workers with benefits. She yelled, "Pound my ass hard, Big Daddy." As she bent over the bed, right as I was entering her, the door creaked open. He was 12, but he also has autism, and he had never seen his mom in such a state before. Then there was a few months later, she was pregnant with our daughter. During this time she wanted to have sex, and she would said she wanted it mentally and emotionally, but her body was like, nah. So she would try to warm herself up with a vibrator, and we had just had Mexican food. Well, every time she twitched she would let out these quiet little farts, and I just pretended not to notice. Then we started going at it doggy style. Right as she came she let out the loudest fart I've ever heard. I'm talking something you would hear in a movie. We both started laughing and she was so embarrassed, but it was funny to both of us. We both lost concentration and were like, "We will try it again another time." Then the not so funny but definitely embarrassing one was when she was riding me. We were having very intense angry sex. We both finished, went to get in the tub together, and she noticed blood running down her legs. She was still pregnant, so we were terrified she was possibly miscarrying. Until she told me to look at my dick, and she had ridden me so forcefully that my foreskin had torn about 1/8 of an inch. Then the pain set in. Story 3. I'll start with, I'd been divorced for a few years from a sexless marriage, about 5 years, sex 3 times sexless, so Tinder was my friend to get out all that pent-up energy, Costco boxes of condoms, really good at having them handy and putting them on properly. I matched with this Nubian goddess way out of my league in my opinion. Little chit-chat, then asks when she can come over mint. She knows what's up. We quickly get the pleasantries out of the way and head to the bedroom. I go down on her and she gets me ready. I expertly put that condom on and my fucking Christ, the tightest vagina I've ever felt. Absolutely incredible. We're given for about 15 to 20 minutes, then I'm kinda like, huh, this feels different. I look down, the condom's gone. I stop dead mid-pound to look around and she's like, what, lol? And I'm like, the condom's gone. She's like, well, put another one on. And I'm just, I think it's inside you. I think you should go check in the bathroom or I can check. She goes and checks and then comes back after like 10 minutes. She's like, I can't get it, it's too far back. So I gotta get my meat hooks into this tiny hole to retrieve a condom that's been sucked off my cock and pound it into her cervix. Takes me a while and she was super uncomfortable and I get it out. She's like, just buy me plan B, no more condoms. Best 2 weeks of sex I've had. Story 4. Last year around this time I had a pretty solid One morning she came over to fool around, and we got into it pretty quick. My puppy Winston was about 4 months old at that point, and loved to cuddle. I couldn't leave him in the room or he'd be up in the middle of us in no time, so I put him out in the hall with a bone for a little bit. 15 minutes later she's on top riding me and suddenly squeals, jumps off, and fell off my bed. Winston pushed the door open without us noticing, jumped up onto the bed, and licked her ass. Not the cheek either. She was pretty rattled. I couldn't stop laughing and gave Winston a treat. Also, just remembered another decent one. With my first girlfriend back in high school, she gave me a blowjob with an ice cube in her mouth. It was a super cool sensation, and I decided I'd return the favor. I got fresh ice cube and put it in my mouth and started going down on her. I was pushing it against her with my tongue, and suddenly it slipped in. Like all the way in. I started trying to DT it out, and at first she didn't realize what was going on. In trying to get it out with my fingers, I just pushed it up even farther. All of a sudden she realizes what happened. She was outraged. Did you lose it? It's inside me. It's so cold, oh my god, and started like smacking me in the head and getting all pissed. Not hard, she was laughing, but she was pretty mad too. It took a long time to melt, and apparently it felt pretty chilly dripping out too. She held that against me for a while. Story 5. About 12 years ago, I went home with a very nice and attractive girl that I had spent all night trying to get into the pants of. She wasn't totally convinced it was a good idea, but I finally talked her into it on the premise that she hadn't got any recently and I was at least not unattractive. So we're there, having a good old time, and suddenly, during a brief quiet moment, I farted. I'd been trying to hold it in, but it was not to be. She collapsed under me, laughing her arse off, and there was no way I could continue after that. She just couldn't stop laughing. Further attempts at coitus were met with a cute, cross face of annoyance. Later that night, I became incredibly ill with food poisoning. I wasn't drunk, and ended up being sick in her toilet. I was okay in the morning, and left in a cab feeling suitably wretched. The fart, on top of the being violently ill, meant that further contact with said very nice and attractive girl were out of the question.